This is a part of our front garden where we had done a makeover with some evergreen turtle vine and some Calisa repens plants. So this spot at the bottom where you're seeing it was completely covered with both these plants that started growing really beautiful, and they stayed beautiful for quite some time. But over a period of time they started drying up and started looking ugly. And as my husband was walking through the garden last week, he also spotted a snake in between that messy spot. So he wanted to get rid of it so that we could be safe and not get into any trouble when we are gardening in the space. So we have a few other plants as you can see here in pots as well, and some that are planted in the ground. So this whole area on the ground was covered with the Calisa repens and evergreen turtle vine, and for a long time they looked good, but once they got messy, we felt that it is best to get rid of them and plant something else in its place. So we had already planted these rain lily bulbs there. They were all in containers, but we had planted a lot of them here and used the Calisa repens and the evergreen turtle vine as a ground cover because the lawn was not growing here. There were a lot of bald patches because this area doesn't get too much of sunlight, and there was also some termite issue. So the lawn was looking very bad. So we had to get all the grass off and replace them with those creeping plants as ground cover. I recently purchased some flowering bulbs online. So I have Saffron, Tritonia, Daylily, Curcuma, and Narine flowering bulbs. So some of them will go into this spot here wherever there is space in between the rain lilies and the coleus plants. I'm going to be planting some of those bulbs, and saffron is something that I am going to plant in containers because saffron is a more special plant and I don't want it to get lost in between all these plants. So we will plant those in containers. So stay tuned and keep watching. So here I have some of the flowering bulbs and I'm going to be planting them today. So saffron is going into this container. So these are the saffron bulbs and they are going into this container. So I have prepared the soil with a well drained potting mix and I'm going to plant the saffron into this container and not into the ground. So I have to look at the instructions to see how they need to be planted, and they are good to be planted anytime between September to March. I have 5 saffron bulbs here and I'm going to plant all of them into this container. So as I take a look at the instructions, I can see that they need to be planted with the tip facing up. So all these bulbs are going to be planted and I will place this packaging label on the container so that I know what I've planted here. So here you can see I have to place it with the tip facing up, and a bit of the tip of the flowering bulb will also stay above the soil. So you can see all the 5 bulbs that I have planted in this container, and saffron bulbs are pretty small so they can be planted all together in this container. Now I have few other flowering bulbs that I'm going to be planting. So here I have, this is the Narine flower bulbs, and in addition to that I have the pink curcuma flower bulbs, some of the day lilies or the Asiatic lilies. So this is the area where I am planting all these bulbs, and the soil is pretty hard to dig. There are a lot of stones and we haven't used that area in a long time. And a lot of my footage got deleted, so I couldn't show the entire planting process. But I have planted a lot of them in this space, and a few I'm planting them in containers because I didn't have enough space there to plant all the bulbs. I didn't want to make it overcrowded. So whatever space I had, I planted some of the flowering bulbs and then the rest of them in containers. Now this is the space in between the rain lilies. Wherever you can see the compost is the spot where I have planted the Tritonia bulbs. They were tiny bulbs, so I planted two very close to each other. So they do get some sunlight. And here I have a few of the Curcuma bulbs, and here I have some Narine bulbs. So, whatever remaining bulbs I had from what I planted in that spot and in containers, I planted some here in between my Dracaena roses and jasmine plants. So, this is an update from our garden where I'm planting some flowering bulbs for our garden, and as they germinate and start to grow, I'll share more updates. So, thank you for watching Fresh from My Garden.